Well, ATSA is a pair of artists, Pierre, Allard, and myself, and we do art in the public space to engage the conversation with citizens around very important problems of the society. That it can be economic problems or social issues, environmental issues, patrimonial issues. Well, it started with an encounter. Pierre, Allard, and myself were both artists, and we met, and it became very quickly a collaboration. But at first, it was really mostly playful, with a walk on the mountain, the Mount Royal here in Montreal, and we did kind of a labyrinth of leaves. And we're looking how people would react with that labyrinth of leaves that we would put in the public space. So would people jump into it, contour it, change it? So it was mostly a matter of observation. But very fast, looking at the news, there was this one news put side to side. One news, it was the banks that were making billions of profits. It was in 1997, and it didn't really change. And right after, there was a news about homeless shelters who were needing 107 pair of socks each day, to renew the socks of homeless people. So those two news put side to side were really a clash, of what some have and what some don't have, and that, those needs, and what do we really need. So it inspired our first intervention in the public space in a more politic and engaged way. So we created this ATM machine made out of stoves, and it's stoves that we sewed together, and the door of the stoves we could withdraw or deposit warm socks for homeless people. So it was a structure that was interactive. People could go and put some socks, and other people could withdraw socks. And we did it in a bit of hard terrorism, because it was put in front of the museum, Contemporary Art Museum, illegally. We didn't have any permission to do that, but we structured ourselves so people around would gather socks for us. So they were involved without knowing it. They knew they were gathering socks, but they didn't knew we would put the structure in front of the museum. So when we did it, they were a bit, they didn't know what happened, but it went really fast, and then it was there, and it was quite a big structure, so they couldn't remove it so fast, and we alerted the media, of course, and so everybody thought, it must be, they must have permission, because it was too big to be like that. So it stayed there, and then we sent a dossier to the director of the museum, and he actually, with some conversation, accepted the art piece in front of his museum. I have to say that there was already an exhibition about art in public space, but it was an exhibition inside the museum, and they didn't do anything outside. So it was a bit our way to say, we're going to make something for you. So by the back door, we kind of entered the exhibition, So we stayed there for actually 3 months. So it really became a big responsibility in the public space, because you don't want to just let the structure there, and people, it can be dangerous. You don't want to abandon it. So that's when started for us sponsorships and real search in the community to gather warm clothing, because only socks, it wouldn't have lasted very much. But of course, people could come and do it, but we had to feed it too, to be responsible of our art piece that we led there and to make sure it was, we nourished it. The important thing is that it stayed there for a long time, enough long time for us to build relationships with homeless shelters, with artists, and to feed that piece, you know. So that's how it started, and the first piece that really launched us with our name and what we did afterwards. We're funded by the councils, the Canada Council, Quebec Council, and Montreal Council. Here, how it works in Canada, it's a jury of pairs, artists. So councils are arm's length from the government, and you know, they do have a budget, but they really ask other artists if it's okay to fund us. So at first, we just did that piece with our own money. The year after, we did a refugee camp with homeless people, and it's only the third year that we really could begin to have funding, project by project, and slowly we became funded through all year long. So now we have a funding for our office and a salary, and we do have to go get in other programs and foundation and donation from individual to be able to produce the art. But at least we do have we can really devote our time to that.
That's great.
So the year after this sock bank, this first piece, we decided to continue on that thematic and move from homelessness to refugee. So, and it was the 50th anniversary of the Human Rights Declaration. So it was a really historical moment to talk about it. It's always into the Christmas time moment when people know they buy all their gifts and stuff that we wanted to make this clash also in the public space. And we decided to manage to do a refugee camp downtown the city. So to really make that clash between people shopping and the reality of so many people in the planet. Living this reality. So we put up this refugee camp. It was quite a process, because the way we work is that we have this idea, okay, it's kind of an image, and we just think, okay, we're going to do it. So after that, it's just like finding what is there, you know, in the reality that can help us making it happen. And not everybody has to know it's art for us. The matter is really just to involve as many people as possible to make it happen in what they're good at. We don't want to change their skills. It's really like enter in the project. We tried to do that refugee camp with the Red Cross. It didn't work out. And then we managed to enter in contact with the army forces. And it's with their infrastructure that we managed to do and now with the image of army really changed a lot. But when you put yourself in 1998, it was more casque bleu and UN kind of army in Canada. So they were more like a peace army. And but for us, as they said yes without knowing our name, it was a real critical moment to be able to criticize the fact that we put so much money into armament instead of fighting poverty, but work with them as well. Because our mantra is not to not talk to someone because it's different. You know, we really like actually to break our own prejudices about work, and it really went well, very well working with them actually, and it really even brought a lot of poetry in the project. Because like around the fire, you would have young soldiers and young people from the street exchanging skills of survival, survival skills. And normally those two groups, they would spit on each other. They would be very not nice, but because it's an art project and it transposes yourself in another world, and it's something that you totally construct, because it's not reality, but you put reality into something not real, and you don't know what the line is, where the line is. People really live something peaceful and exchange about their reality really more easily. That's what we observe. It's like a microcosm. At one point, it's like if you create a city in this city, a little village, like Asterix. It's like if you construct this little village in the middle of the town, where everything is possible. People would sleep there, eat there, listen to music. You can really live 24 hours around for 5 days, not moving from there. And at one point, you really feel like a little community that is really solid for those days. And we perdured that project for until now. It's only 2 years that we didn't do it. So I think this year was the 16th time. So it's a lot of years, So through the years, we construct a lot of threads. So it became a really big social thread around the project. Only 3 years we did it with the army, though. Right. After that, it stopped, and we did it by ourselves with our own tents and everything. So it really built it up quite big. Also, it's always a challenge, not a challenge, but it's always a challenge, because the city, it was not easy at all to make that project. They don't want to see 300 homeless people gathered all together, take that space in a park and stay there for several days. We are in cities now that are very touristic also, and that you don't want to show problems of the city, so they're very cold with that at first. But then I guess it changed the paradox into a city that can show their values of compassion, empathy, generosity, engagement. I think we succeeded in that way to change a bit the discourse around it, and we don't place ourselves as if we are social workers. We are artists. We're there to produce extraordinary. It's not there to... It won't provide a change forever. We know that it's not at that level that we work. But that extraordinary feeling makes a print in your mind, in your art, that you continue to bring afterward. For the general public, for homeless people, in the media, it's a cause that you don't forget. Because you're artist and that you do something that is so big and so wow, well, media are going to talk about it, so it's not a cause that it's ignored. After that, people, all volunteers, because when it was at its biggest year, we were around 400 volunteers working into it. So that's a lot of people. All of these people, they do talk about it, so you can imagine, like, the concentric circles that make... So it makes an experience, a living experience, that transforms, I think, a society, even if it's a 5 days concentration. And for the homeless people, where for those days, it's kind of... They have the right to exist openly in the city, People come and talk to them. They have suddenly kind of a citizenship. They feel more like, okay, we are recognized, and they get involved in the project. So those who more have, the skills to able to concentrate, because there's a lot of mental illness and drugs and everything. But some of them are really able to be useful and really get involved and have responsibilities. We do give them responsibilities year after year, and it becomes kind of a little family. We recognize each other, we know each other. For sure, it's always the same guy who's gonna check the sound system. For sure, it's always the same guy who is gonna have the key with him. Always the same guy who's gonna make the doorman at the door of the tent. So it builds a feeling of it's their project too. Even if it's Pierre and I, even if it's still a pyramidal organization, we are very much sensitive, to make people feel useful in it. And when there's a new idea coming, we all, okay, yeah, it could be nice, and we try to make it happen. At first, with that project, there was a lot of education to do. Homeless people, they often don't see that you're making art and that they can be involved in it, or that they can understand it, or that it's also for them. So sometimes they were not interested about knowing what it is. And from years to years, they developed, who are the artists this year, and what is it gonna be? And so it was great to see the transformation, that yes, there was food, yes, there was clothing, but there was art, and that was really significant too, and so that was a really interesting build, in mutual build. But there was stories like that there was an artist who made a kind of a house in wood, and at one point there was no more wood to because we have a fire in the central of the space, and one homeless guy, he just wanted to destroy the art piece to burn the wood. And there was this fight between, okay, maybe you need wood, but this artist, she worked a lot to do that art piece. Well, you're gonna destroy it anyway tomorrow. Why can't I use it for the wood? So there's sometimes a big clash, like that, and that's the interesting part too, to make this encounter. So that was interesting. But it's interesting also in inviting like the biggest chefs. We invite restaurants that are very renommé, well known in Montreal, to give great food, because we think we want to create extraordinary experience. So we won't put hot dogs. It's gonna be great. You're gonna eat something that you've never eaten before, and but it's funny, like homeless arrive and they want to put ketchup on foie gras, and the chef, they laugh, and it's a moment also of sharing a clash of education or culture. But it's when you meet like that I think you create something that is less separated, or in the society. We really need to create those links. That's the major part, I think, of our work. Is art important? Beside of a so important cause as poverty. It's easy to say, of course poverty is really important, but art, it's not important. But as an artist, to continue to feel that you're doing something important as an artist. So that, I think, is something special. That is not just a subject, it's also art in itself is important. I think sometimes it's art in a situation where you create around a cause to feel that you're doing something important. It's you often feel not as an impostor, you have this underdog position because the cause is so important, and it's important to stand also that on the fact that, like the example of that art piece that I didn't want the guy to destroy because it is important, yeah.
So what happened?
Oh, he didn't destroy it because anyway, I wanted to responsibilize them. They had woods for 4 days and they knew how much wood they had, and they had to manage the wood. So if you burn it in 2 days, well, live with it. It's too bad. We went to buy more woods because there was enough time that we couldn't stay, but they had to face the fact that you respect art and you didn't manage the wood well. We're going to help you to have more wood, but you won't destroy the art piece. So, it's a conversation that we have to make all the time. And the project that we're doing now, actually, it's still about, it was constructed in the homeless project, but it's a project that we really want to tour and do elsewhere on the subject of living together. How do we live together? And I think that with the world now that is so much permeable, that immigration and terrorist attacks, and people are more fear, and they have to adapt themselves more and more about different culture, different vision. It's really important to talk to one another. So right now we have a project about conversation, about just making a conversation, and it's called Time for a Soup, Le Temps d'une Soupe in French. And that's really a project that we want to make happen wherever people want us to arrive with it. Yeah, physically, it's a defined space where 20 pair of chairs are facing one another. We invite people to have a soup with someone you don't know. And the time of that soup, we give you certain questions and you have a conversation with that person. When the soup ends, we direct you to a space where you give a poetic title to your conversation, and we take your portrait of the team, and then we project it on the back of the space. So people, they do have this intimate conversation about something important, and then they have this feeling of, even if it was an intimate conversation and confidential conversation, to be part of a collective conversation and to have built an orality around what it is to live together in the public space. What is a public space? Where do my individual start and the collectiveness begins? It's all questions that we think are very important, and that it's very, it deepens a lot and it pacifies a lot public spaces, because, well, what we experiment now, because we're only human beings. And it's only when you talk to one person that you really let go and that you enter into what can really moves you profoundly, and that you establish something that confiance, that your faith, something a thread of and that the experience is personal. So you really direct it to yourself, and it transforms you, I think, more for real. So that's our work right now. It's to work on orality, to open a mechanism of encounter, a mechanism of conversation. I don't have to know the conversation. My work is to provide the space and the environment for you to elevate the conversation to a level that you really commit yourself to it. And that is not fortuit, it's not so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So So have you written the question?
Because the first time we did it, it was in the context of homelessness. So if we ask people what they do when people beg, do they give money or not? Why? Did it ever happen to them to not know where they would sleep one night? So you can relate to your own experience. Do they think that why are people in the street? Is there a link with education? Is there a link with love? Is there a link? So we try just to make people think about this situation, this context. Sometimes they are seated with a homeless person, sometimes not. So we don't, the only important thing is that you are seated in front of someone you don't know. So we do workshop. We're creating workshop to be able to understand where we arrive and to have people that really can make the bridge between us and the community, and to build sometimes questions that are really specific in that community, something edgy in that community, but sometimes questions that are at large, universal, that you can really do anywhere. We're open to transform it in other kind of spaces. It's always a discussion with someone who would be willing to invite us. We are used to transform our project and adapt with the space and the discussion we have. Yeah. I think right now the way we use public space is a lot for tourism, a lot to make the city beautiful, but not a lot to make citizens think and speak to one another and be aware of problematics that are important, that we should engage ourselves into some change. And that's what ATSA does. So sometimes right now we do have problem to put our art in the public space because we're doing political work. Political in the sense of pointing a problem, addressing a problem, and wanting us to speak about it. And I guess that's why we're going more and more into mechanism of encounter, mechanism of conversation, bringing conversation between people in the real space, not in the virtual space. And I think at the public, we're all actors of the reality. So for us, it's not necessarily to bring a text and to manage to put wording into the mouth of the people, but to create a space where people can talk, but to elevate it as an art piece. It's not open session, a social working thing. We really wanted to provide an environment where you feel in an art piece. I think for us it's a kind of a new sacred place, this art place. It's a place where you can really feel that you're protected because you're over reality. You produce a supra-reality, and you're protected because of that, because you can get out of it afterwards. You enter in a world and you can go out of it right after. So that protects you, and you can live a special experience because of that. And that's why we really take good care of we are aesthetize it. We aesthetize it very much so people, they understand that they enter in something different.